Just let's finish with the coronavirus. What do you think is happening with that? Why do you think it materialized in Wuhan? Why do you think it spread? What do you make of the diagnosis of, the classification of, the lockdown? What are your thoughts?
Well, I, it's pretty well proven now that there isn't just the virus. There's not just one virus out there that's causing all this pathology. I mean, even early on when they started calling this the Wuhan virus, and did it originate in Wuhan? It seems as though it did. Was it something that just happened like in the wet markets like they're talking about, or was it released from a lab? Was it intentionally released? Was it a bioterrorism effect? I don't know, and I don't know that that's really important. I mean, the fact is that now when we had this outbreak in South Korea, we had the outbreak in Iran, we had all that pathology in Italy, and then we had New York and California, which seemed to be the hotbeds here. Was that the same virus? Was it, we keep talking about the virus, that the virus we can make the vaccine for, but they're really different. And they've already mutated. I mean, even a couple of weeks ago, the New York Times had a piece on at least 30 different mutated viruses, because that RNA virus, as soon as it comes, if I get it and I become ill from it, and I pass it on, it's already mutated, it's already changed. And then I read a piece a couple of days ago that they think there may be up to 150 different mutant viruses already out there in circulation. So we have all these viruses that we're chasing it with this vaccine, that by the time the vaccine comes out, the viruses will be somewhere else. They'll be mutated again. So the coronaviruses have been around a really long time. They've been in animals, they've been in humans. And like I said, in any given flu season, coronaviruses cause something called influenza-like illness, which means it's the flu, but not caused by influenza viruses. And they've been around for a really long time. Was it weaponized? Is there proof of that? It seems as though there's coming more and more that there is. That's not really where I tend to spend my focus, though. I mean, I tend to look at this, that the biggest concern that I have about this virus is the shutdown of the economy. And I've said that from the very beginning. When all this stuff started happening, I took a kind of a step back and a 30,000 foot view, saying, this is same playbook, different virus. Why are they doing this? We had SARS, we had bird flu in 2005, H5N1. We had H1N1 in 2009, we had swine flu, and now we have this coronavirus thing. Why are they doing this with the economy? This is like, look over there, look to the right, look to the right. It's all about this virus, but the real action and the real problem is look to the left. And what are they trying to do globally to our economy? And I said, if you just take a little while, just take a little step back, give this a couple months, and they start crunching the numbers, we're going to find out that this coronavirus, whether it was weaponized, whether it was released, whether it came from a wet lab, we're going to find out that the death rate of this virus is going to be no worse than an influenza virus. And I was right. In fact, it's even less. They think the global death rate from people now is about 0.1 to 0.2% of people who contract the infection. But yet we've destroyed the global economy over a big fat nothing burger virus.
What are the people in Ohio saying where you're at? Like, are people getting back to work? Are they still terrified to go out? Like, what's
both?
Okay.
A little bit of both. I mean, we really came down hard. The people here really came down hard on Governor DeWine and Amy Acton, his public health minion, of saying, because of what they were doing was not based in science. And we're actually opening back up here in Ohio now. In fact, the hairdressers and nail salons are open this week. And next week, and they've started opening up restaurants if you've got like an outside patio, which is kind of funny because we've had a particularly cold spring here. So, and it's raining right now as we speak. And so if you have an outdoor patio, it's okay. But next week inside is going to be better. I have friends that own restaurants here, and they said they don't know how with the new rules that they've come out about contamination and distancing and putting things on the table, plastic things that show to keep you apart from the person sitting across from you. And I have a really good friend who owns a chain of restaurants, and he said, the small people, they're just not going to, it's going to be cost prohibitive for them to even try to do these shielding things and this social distancing stuff and having people wear masks, which is just nonsense. And that's been proven, unbelievably proven, about that healthy people wearing masks is completely detrimental to your health.
Yeah, well, speak on that. Speak on the social distancing, the plastic sheets, the masks. I mean, as a doctor, what do you see in all of that?
I think I see a destruction of humanity, of the way that we are known to be as humans. I mean, humans are social animals. I think of humans sometimes as like a big basket full of puppies. You know, they like to crawl over top of each other, and they like to play and tumble around, and they like to hug and kiss and high five and slap each other on the back, and they like to sit close to each other in scary movies, and they like to sit close to each other when they go to a bar and watch their favorite sports teams. And now we have to be 6 feet apart. Like, who tested that? Who knows that if you sneeze, it only goes 6 feet and drops right there? Who knows? Nobody knows. And now that they've, you know, and I've got an article that I'm going to finish sometime this week that talks about all the problems with the masks. And Dr. Russell Blaylock's article that came out, you know, just a couple of days ago, I totally agree with him. And Russell's been friends of mine forever. He's a retired neurosurgeon. And we're on the same page of saying these masks decrease the amount of oxygen in your blood, increase the amount of carbon dioxide in your blood. Increasing the carbon dioxide increases acidity. When you increase acidity, if you've got any growing cancer cells, or you've got cancer cells, it feeds the cancer cells. You've got viruses and bacteria that normally live in your mouth and in your nose. And if you block them right here all day long, instead of like letting them blow out where they should, now you've got this barricade that's accumulating the viruses and bacteria in your mouth and your nose, and you take a deep breath, you're inhaling them down into your lungs. And if you have compromised lungs, if you have asthma, COPD, if you're a smoker, now you're setting yourself up for a more serious type of infection, not from the coronaviruses, but from staph or strep or Klebsiella, Pseudomonas, things that are normal flora in your mouth that don't belong into your lungs. And then you also have, you know, this whole social distancing thing with kids. I mean, how do kids and babies learn is by reading facial expressions and watching people's eyes. And I've had parents tell me that have young infants, you know, they have on a mask and they're out and about, and they come in and the infants are like, they're looking at them funny. And as soon as they take off the mask, the little infant starts to smile because they recognize that that's mom. And so I think there's a lot of bad pathology that's going on with these masks. And I think that it's a really, really destructive to who we are as humans. And in fact, when I first started hearing that word social distancing, they didn't just say, you know, stay apart, you know, you should have some distance, you know, and particularly if somebody's sick. And they didn't do that. And I said, you know, that social distancing is going to become part of our language lexicon. That's not going to go away. And I believe that's true. I think that's going to be around for a long time.